to talk about all kinds of exciting announcements and not yet announcements surrounding E3 with Sam. How do you say your last name, Sam?
Machkovech.
Machkovech. I didn't want to butcher it. I'm sorry.
That's,
I butchered it in your intro there.
It's all right. I got you to say sorry, so that works for me.
You got me to say sorry. Sam lives and works out of the Seattle area for a fantastic website called Ars Technica. How long have you been there?
I've been there for 5 years, writing a lot about games, VR, film. Basically, Victor will write about something or talk about it, and then I'll do a slightly less good job. That's basically what I've been doing over there at Ars Technica.
See, this is why Sam's on the show so often, and will be many, many more times. No, this is very sweet of you. But that's pretty cool because, you know, the media landscape is very volatile, and to have that level of support for that length of time these days is kind of rare, isn't it?
I have found a way to get paid to talk about video games for 23 years now, Victor. So, you know, I understand that sentiment and then some. We could go on and on about that, but I feel like you and I have like 750 video games to talk about. Isn't that what we got going on here?
We have a massive, massive list. I think the first thing that we have to talk about, because we were under embargo and we actually were talking about having you on earlier, but we had to shift the date. Now we can talk about Call of Duty. I haven't really talked to you since we were pummeled by all of its beauty and grotesqueries when we sat down for the demo.
Oh, my goodness.
What are your thoughts on this game?
It was a very intense presentation. What's really interesting is Victor and I, along with a big panel of pre-E3 press, we all were invited to Infinity Ward Studios in California in the Los Angeles area.
Which was great.
Yeah, it was really cool, and we sat in their giant presentation theater room, and we got to see 2 real-time gameplay sequences, 2 full missions from pretty early in the game. And before this, it was sort of an interesting thing. And over at Vice, Austin Walker has a really great article, and I recommend everyone go look at it, because I think he did a really good job of talking about how this Call of Duty Modern Warfare can't quite make up its mind between being bad and being badass, or in terms of how it portrays war. Because we got to hear a lot of long speeches, and you don't see this in the YouTube reveal that came out yesterday about taking war seriously, the phrase boots on the ground, the morally gray areas of war. You get that sort of really gritty sounding presentation or sound of these missions, but then we also got, a 20-minute speech about graphics pipelines and how about the gun is the character. They think of the gun as a character. I'm like, Super Mario, big gun, same thing. It's in a really strange territory, Modern Warfare, because it's trying to juggle some exciting gameplay and beautiful tech with some rip from the headlines kind of material.
It's going to rub people the wrong way. I think it already has in some ways, for sure.
We can talk about the single player, which we did not get to play. But it was really intense because it was 2 missions that were take characters. I mean, for people who don't know, this is not a remake of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. They're calling it Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That had leaked about a week earlier, and people kind of lost their minds going, ugh, what a terrible name. And the reason they did it was because they said, well, we did a lot with the Modern Warfare timeline. We made 3 games. There were nukes that went off. There were all kinds of crazy occurrences. We like those characters, but we need to reset the timeline in order to bring them back. And so they're kind of starting from scratch with Captain Price, the cigar chomper who's really familiar. That was the only character we saw. And there were 2 missions, one where you're following Tier 1 operatives in the UK who are stealth crawling through an apartment complex, a townhouse, with night vision goggles on.
Very much like a Rainbow Six mission.
And you see a tiny bit of that in the trailer, and the technology behind the light reflections is unbelievable. Everything about how the light sources bounce off. We heard a long speech about how they're really rendering the heck out of that. And I'm like, yeah, that was incredible. But also, we see plainclothes civilians die in really gruesome ways. Imagine a really finely animated soldier's death in a video game. You've seen this. It's kind of striking. It's kind of terrifying, but maybe it's an alien or an enemy or an abstraction. This looked like real people who we later find out are terrorists or trying to kill you, slumping over. The amount of technology that goes into you feeling terrible about this is pretty intense. And
it's crazy, right? Because I mean, clearly this is fiction, and clearly this is playing up with, our concerns about real-life events and the atrocities of war that are occurring today. But it also is entertainment, and we're also supposed to have a very good time. So it's a very weird balancing act that's happening in your brain. But honestly, I kind of applaud that they're trying, Like, this is a business that is kind of always messy because it's always trying new things. And I applaud that they're doing that with this multi-billion-dollar franchise.
Well, not only that, this is them coming back to the campaign, which they skipped last year for Black Ops 4. They said, oh, we're just doing multiplayer. So for them to come back to the campaign and say, oh, we're swinging. No Russian, which was the really controversial thing from years ago, you know, we're going way past that. Because the second mission, which I haven't even talked about, you're starring as a 7-year-old girl in an unnamed kind of Middle Eastern European country. There's poppy fields, seems like Afghanistan, and it revolves around you at this very diminutive height, having to sneak around, stabbing people with screwdrivers, watching family members die.
Yeah.
It's gruesome. It's brutal. It is weird, and people
heavy.
are going to be talking about it. And so that's only a little bit. We saw essentially linear levels.
Well,
it wasn't.
You know, what hit me. You know, my daughter is 7, so I was totally uncomfortable to watch all of that. But what hit me was what the character saw. You know, it wasn't the actions that she had to do for her survival. It was civilians, you know, dying because of gas attacks and things like that are happening. But I mean, if they're going to try to create something that is, you know, tactile and feels like somewhat a semblance of reality, they have to go dark like this, you know.
And they made a big stink about we're not the superhero Call of Duty. They wanted to make it very clear that they are not Black Ops. It almost felt like they were kind of taking pot shots at the Black Ops side of things, to be like, we're boots on the ground. I think they used that phrase 27 times. I'm kidding, but it was a lot. But you know, the trailer that came out was very wow, oh my goodness, high technology and all that. And what we all saw and wrote about at length was a lot more, ooh boy. And there's a lot more of the game to be shown. I don't know how much more they're going to reveal at E3. I imagine at least something. But all in all, the technology pipeline's incredible. They want war to look really visceral. They're doing that. They actually hinted at a whole new engine do-over. They have a whole team in Poland, and one of their representatives came out and said, we're doing 5 times as much geometry while keeping 60 frames a second.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Clearly prepping for the next generation of machines, and I think that this will probably be one of those cross-gen titles as well.
Oh, and yeah, they're doing cross-play. That's the other thing. PC, Xbox, PlayStation, they're all going to be able to play this Call of Duty together, just this generation, let alone next gen.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And honestly, I feel like they're emphasizing Modern Warfare because the possibility is that they might actually split Modern Warfare and Call of Duty into different brands. You know, that was the thought that came up, is that they might want to emphasize Modern Warfare as the new brand. Let's talk about some of the other games that we know about. Like, I don't know. I basically, because we're under tons of embargoes, so
we are very important people. It's true. We just covered in secrecy. Yes.
And some of these we have played, and some of them we haven't. But let me just thoughts on Oddworld's Soulstorm.
I was at GDC, and there was a Unity presentation that looked like it was pre-rendered. And you know, the thing about Oddworld, you and I are pretty old men in terms of playing the original on PS1 and being blown away. Yes, I mean, we're ancient. I don't even want to talk to you about certain exams I've gone to the doctor about. But Andy
Mack called us old men today too, so I don't know if people are trying to make a statement or something.
But they went to that Unity thing at GDC and said, we're doing this real time. We are going to great lengths to really push a lot of characters and a lot of effects. And I don't know exactly what's to come, but I think they really want to push the Unity engine and take the things that we remember from the PlayStation 1 era and make it explode. You know, when you saw old pre-rendered games and thought, oh my God, what if that was all completely interactive in real time? I think that's where they're going to go, and I hope that they go out of the park with something like that, because
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my.
Well, it's a cool fit for Unity as well, right? There's some prestige around bringing that brand back. Great mug, by the way. I got to get one of those. Oh. The Outer Worlds, we know that this is coming from Obsidian. And this one, again, we know a little more about, but I don't know. How much can we talk about the Outer Worlds?
It's a video game that exists. I cannot wait to see what they have to show for the Outer Worlds, because we've all seen they had I want to say that was at the Game Awards in December, where they had that reveal, and you look at it and you go, I was a guy who wanted more from Fallout 4. I wanted the ideas of that to be presented in a more lush engine with more interesting characters, more diversity. And
Blake's nodding. Blake's agreeing with you.
And there are people who can agree or disagree, but I think Obsidian is set in a whole new franchise. If they just rip off Fallout and then go one bigger with every single idea they have and a completely new IP in terms of the choices you can make, the skill trees you can go into, I believe the sky is the limit for that. And I really want to see what they have to show off, because I have gathered that they want to show sort of actual gameplay from the middle of the game. That's what I think they're leaning towards, but they have not gone on the record necessarily.
Right.
But that's what I'm hoping for, and I am very optimistic is how much I can say.
Obsidian is a pretty impressive developer. Now they're Microsoft owned, so it's this whole game, the idea of it is a bit weird to me, because I don't know if it's a Microsoft game now, but they have delivered so many cool titles over the years. Maybe some of them a little bit beyond their reach, maybe a little too ambitious, but such fantastic designers and writers and developers within that team over there. I'm super excited about the Outer Worlds. I think this might be one of the better games of the year.
That was one of the trailers that they showed last year, and I'm like, the sky's the limit in terms of my imagination, because that art design and that I want to have faith in it. So we will see.
Do you think Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out this year?
No, I think that it could come out. They could do like I want to say the original Doom came out on December 31st in its release year, just to make that year, but it will slip. I am not familiar with what's going on over there at CD Projekt Red. I do know that something will be at E3 with that game, and
Yep.
I was in the theater when they were showing it off last year. And this year, I think, is really going to be answering the question of how much of this is a game. What happens when you get the controller in your hand and prove out? I think that's the milestone they have to hit.
Did you book your appointment with them, or have you got a demo?
I've booked 7 appointments just in case. I just want to make sure those things fill up real fast. But
yes.
yeah, I don't know if they're going to give me a controller or a mouse and keyboard. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think that this E3 is theirs if they can get people to grab a controller and tell different stories, because that's what that original presentation made us all believe was, wow, you really have a lot of directions to go, whether you're killing things, sneaking around, going through complete just conversation-driven stuff with conversation trees. It's one of those games that made us all go, okay, I've been waiting for this. I want to believe that it's this big. Like, Outer Worlds to me seems a little less ambitious and a little more like, yeah, it's going to happen. Cyberpunk, I still have question marks.
Yeah, Cyberpunk is almost, answering the promise of a lot of the ideas that Deus Ex proposed,
Absolutely,
and an incredibly stylish, very polished presentation kind of style as well.
Those big, bustling cities. I mean, I could just imagine an E3 demo where you go into that hub town and just have conversations with people for 2 hours and then get shooed away by the next attendee and go, no.
What do you think that EA is going to turn their Star Wars ship around with Jedi Fallen Order?
Respawn did the impossible by putting out Apex Legends and having it not suck. I think we all went into that thinking this is going to be a nightmare. You can say what you want about its support over the past few months since it launched. It's still a good game. It's still them saying we can do it. So that, I think, was really important for both Respawn and EA to say we can still make a decent game and have limits. We know how much we can and can't do. So if that is the case and they can double that down with Jedi Fallen Order, great. So I don't know, though, because they've bombed through so much Star Wars stuff. They've had so many different people on the leadership side of EA. From what I've read of Jason Schreier over Kotaku, his reporting is incredible.
Yeah, yes.
And the message that seems to come through again and again is management and leadership that just doesn't know what to do with a licensed property, as opposed to...
Destiny came in and really kind of shook up the business, right? Like, it really kind of pointed a direction for a lot of people that were trying to figure out how to navigate through these super expensive games, and they looked over at what Bungie and Activision had done and said, whoa, hey, that's working. Let's try to just follow that. But as we're learning, everybody at BioWare is learning, it's really hard to kind of find people at Bungie are learning on Destiny 2 still, like this is a really difficult path.
We're going to get to Microsoft in a second, but Microsoft has finally been hitting the reset button on the leading, not following. That's why they've kind of gone dark. That's why E3 for them stunk last year, because they said, oh, we got to really get out of the Don Matrick Connect on Xbox One era. We got to start from scratch. And I think EA, I don't know if this is the year that they say we're resetting and we're going to lead instead of following. They seem really stuck on following trends. I mean, goodness, Apex Legends as a battle royale, whoever made that decision, whether it was Respawn or otherwise, that felt more like following than leading. So that's going to be the cloud over them until they really put out a show of force.
Yeah, and sometimes that works. We see Apple kind of take the following but finessing kind of path, and it works for that company. And I think you can point to certain eras in Electronic Arts history and see that it worked for them as well. But I think what's true about EA is that they have an unbelievable collection of intellectual properties that they own, and they have a lot of cash in the bank to be able to build us some world-class stuff.
I'm still waiting for FIFA Battle Royale. That's what we need. 100 soccer players, one ball. Let's do it.
Please don't suggest that. We're probably going to get that in the EA non-press conference. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Nintendo here, and then we'll get into Microsoft. We know that they're not going to have a Switch. That's what they've said, anyways. We already know that there's Animal Crossing coming. We know that the Pokemon game, Sword and Shield, and there's the other derivatives of Pokemon are coming because of Nintendo Directs. We know that Super Mario Maker 2 is going to be out very soon. We know that The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, that's one of the games that I'm most excited about for 2019. Can they surprise us, and what do you think they will surprise us with? They've kind of showed us a lot already for this year.
I will say one thing I've noticed for the past few years of Nintendo at E3, they'll have maybe a surprise, but they're really about having the show floor. They want that show floor to be giant lines for the games that they know that people want. Like Smash Brothers was not a surprise last year, lines out the wazoo. Mario Odyssey, that had lines out of the wazoo when that was being teased. They don't need to surprise us at E3. They want that photo op of everyone saying, I love Nintendo. And they're going to get that with Animal Crossing. They're going to get that with Pokemon Sword and Shield. I still think they have an opportunity to surprise with some sort of niche-y thing that's going to do more for E3 reactions than it's going to do for stockholder reactions. Because they want to surprise with like smartphone success. That seems to be the thing that drives them. I've just been testing Mario Kart Tour beta. I don't know if they're going to talk about that at all at E3 because that's such a big deal for Japanese publishers. So there could be, an one more thing. I don't know if it's going to be Metroid Prime 4. I don't know exactly what they. I do think we're going to get a Smash Brothers DLC reveal. I feel like it's going to be that level of thing because they're going to have a Smash Brothers tournament and other sort of esports stuff. And Mario Maker 2 won't be out yet, so they're still going to have kiosks and lines for that. People are going to be doing a local multiplayer. There's going to be just lines of people waiting to do 4-player Mario Maker stuff. That's going to be its own trip. So that's honestly, sort of what I anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Mario Maker, you've got Animal Crossing, you've got a new Fire Emblem, you've got a new Pokemon game, and we've got the Zelda remake. That's 5 big games that anybody would love to have, right? And Nintendo's got them all locked up.
And they're really good at doing the slow drip of every 90 days a Nintendo Direct that blows the internet up, takes every Twitter hashtag. They know when to drop that stuff. And Microsoft and Sony are playing catch up with their own fake Nintendo Direct versions. And Nintendo's still steamrolling, showing us how it's done.
I guess we get to see Doug Bowser perform too, right? This is his first
Bowser
first
Unleashed.
Big reveal. Bowser Unleashed.
Oh, I hope he has a stupid catchprised.
Okay, well, Bethesda had a remarkable year last year. Some good, some very bad. I think the signs might have been there for Fallout 76 with the game not being able to be played at E3 last year. That was odd. And it wasn't playable at Gamescom. That was not odd
to me. That was entirely expected because it just looked like GAAS, games as a scam, games as a service. I'm cutting ahead of you because they set 2 games up at the press conference last year that looked, playable and real. And the hope is that we're going to see more of those this year. Doom Eternal and Wolfenstein Youngblood. With Doom Eternal, that's more of the same maybe, or maybe some refinements and some crazy stuff. I don't know what I can say about that other than
that's one that we could say some things, but we can't.
I'm very optimistic in general because Doom 2016 got a lot right and surprised everybody.
Oh, that was an incredible game, yeah.
That means they can move full steam ahead
Yep.
with that and build on that. Like even if it was just played like an expansion pack, I would probably be satisfied. But I'm curious what more they can bring to the table. And then on the other hand, there's Wolfenstein Youngblood. That does look to me more like an expansion pack than a full game. I don't know what they're going to have with that. I think they've promised. I don't remember exactly what they've said publicly about it, but I'm curious to see it. But I'm not as excited about that. But people have loved that game, that engine. Does great stuff with id Tech 5, looks great on console and computer. So I imagine whatever they show of that will be playable and will be very high-tech, visceral, bloody fun.
Well, you know what I always love about publishers giving developers 3 kicks at something is that by that third time, they get into some pretty revolutionary stuff. You know, we've seen that over and over again with Burnout, with Grand Theft Auto, and I think it's awesome that Bethesda has given machine games this much support to kind of shake up that franchise. I'm super psyched to see what they do with Youngblood. I've been a fan. I've liked those previous
But on the
games.
other hand, I don't know that we're going to see. I don't know what they're going to do with Elder Scrolls 6. I think last year they showed like a JPEG that Elder Scrolls 6 exists.
A title, yeah.
And their other one, Starfield, is that the name? Am I
Yeah.
blanking on that name? Yeah. Maybe they're going to show like a really flashy pre-rendered something that is not real gameplay, which is going to be ZZZ for me. If so, but if they've got, or if Doom and Wolfenstein are on the plate, then we'll see what kind of teases. I do expect them to have a very long presentation about Elder Scrolls Online and Elder Scrolls Blades and Elder Scrolls Card something, whatever mobile thing that makes me fall asleep. I'm sure they're going to devote too much time to that.
Do you think Starfield will sort of follow the vein of the Elder Scrolls games and the Fallout games that Bethesda has been putting out there, or do you think it will be a totally different type of experience?
I want to be a fly on the wall at Bethesda at that course, the Todd Howard room, because I think they know that they want to be the gamer reputation studio. I want to see what they say about 76 at the presentation. I want to see what they say about a lot of criticism about that. There are people who like that game, who've gone in and seen it get support. I think it's better supported than Anthem, which is not saying much, but they're trying.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, but they have to take away from that and respond. And so that, I think, is the thing that we can't predict. Are they going to say something? Are they going to show something that specifically says, hey, 76 haters, here's the other thing. We swear we got your back.
You know, they did that a little bit with Elder Scrolls Online, and the one thing that I love about the way that Pete Hines kind of runs the ship over there is that he legitimately plays. He's been with the company for 20-something years at this point.
I think that's Todd Howard coming to get you right now.
Yeah, this is the Bethesda police. No, but he, he's a passionate guy that really knows how to be straight up with the messaging, and I feel like we're probably going to get something. A little mea culpa, I think, about the problems that Fallout 76, and that's exactly what they need to do. And frankly, that's what EA didn't do with Star Wars Battlefront, and I think we need to hear something about Anthem as well from the brass at EA, not just sort of push out one of the developers. I think they got to kind of take some responsibility for some of these shortfalls.
I think we should move on to more optimistic territory.
Yes.
I have nothing else nice to say about those.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's talk about Xbox, speaking about optimism, because I think last year was a little bit underwhelming, but we did get the news. Yeah, they're buying so many Battletoads. They're buying so many studios. They've got to have some exciting announcements this year.
You know, Gears 5 is going to be a big show. They're going to do a lot to push that.
Yep.
I think the Coalition is still down the block from you guys there in BC.
We had Rod in here as a guest. He was fantastic.
Maybe we're going to see something from Gears Tactics. I've heard tiny rumbles that things are a little shaky on that one compared to Gears 5, but that's supposedly happening still. But I think Gears 5 has a chance to be everything that Gears 4 kind of aspired to.
Yep.
Completely owned and maintained by a studio that's gotten its legs under it. So that is I'm really hopeful, and I do believe that's going to be the one we see the most of, just because we already know about it, because it's coming soon, as opposed to Halo Infinite, which I think we're just going to get some vague stuff. We might get a speech with like a couple of still images. We might get
That's a launch game for the next machine, I think, right?
They're definitely going to say something, because they said something last year. That doesn't mean it's going to be much, but there's also just the question of, well, what do we have? Like, I have a tab open in my other browser that is about all of the different pieces of the puzzle. We've got, what's Forza going to do? Are we going to see, they said that they were taking the year off from doing the usual Forza Motorsport versus Forza Horizon. They'd be doing every other year for each of those. They said specifically they're taking time off, and there may be some DLC for Forza Horizon. That's been the buzz, that it's going to, the leak is hinting at, if you liked the Hot Wheels expansion for the last Horizon, you're going to love whatever thing is coming from this one.
Oh,
so it sounds like it'll be wackadoodle. We got In Exile, we got Mojang, we've got Rare, we've got Obsidian, we've got Ninja Theory, Ori, the next Ori platformer. It's still not out. We played it last year and it felt really great. Ninja Theory is a studio I really like. Are they going to do something with Age of Empires? Are we going to see something from the guys who made We Happy Few? I shouted Battletoads. If you go back and listen to last year's E3 presentation, you can hear me scream right at the moment that the Battletoads logo appears, because I was the one guy in the room who gave a crap. But I do wonder if that is going to be that exact $20 fun, wacky thing that Microsoft needs so badly. A modest, fun, wacky callback, because
Cuphead kind of served that.
And it's
to a
time
degree.
for another one of those, in my opinion.
It's time for more there. And honestly, I think we're probably going to hear some big announcements about their partnerships with companies like Nintendo and maybe more.
Could be. They want to run the cloud for everybody. There's, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on one of the things. There's just
Fable.
Mojang has, they teased an adventure game last year,
right?
A 4-player dungeon crawler. This might be a good time for them to let us know if/when we might expect that. And also, we know that we're going to learn more about Xbox Game Pass for PC. We already know that they want their games on Steam. They want their x86 style software, meaning not bundled with that Windows 10 crap. Like, they're taking that seriously. We got that as like a small press release, but I think that's a big deal, especially in an age when Epic Game Store gets everybody to make some sort of contorted look on their face. It's a really good time for Microsoft to say, hey, man, we want to make sure you've got places to buy stuff with as little extra crap attached to it as possible. So smart move on their part. We'll have to see what they have to say about maybe bundling Xbox Live Gold and Game Pass and, I don't know, T-shirts, whatever the heck they might bundle and just send to your house.
Yeah. No, I think, everything that you've said there makes a lot of sense, but it's not like the shocking reveal. What do you think Xbox drops that's going to shock everybody? New Crimson Skies, new Mech Assault, new Fable?
I don't have any good. Everybody's shut the heck up. All of my Seattle area sources at Microsoft are keeping their lips pretty tight, which I think is a good indicator that we're going to get something wackadoodle. I don't think it's going to be a Japanese studio, because historically they have not leaned on those for their big and one more thing. But I do think we'll get something in the middle that says, hey, we got some really cool stuff that'll sell another 87 Xboxes in Japan. But no, I do think it's going to be some sort of big blast from the past or fusion or collaboration that's going to get everyone going. There will be something. They're good.
I want new Fable, I want new Crimson Skies, and I want new Mech Assault. So if they touch any of those,
they're all in one game, and it's a battle royale. Sorry.
Yeah, no more battle royales. I also would, like Jeff Keighley was kind of joking about this, but we're going to see Halo on PlayStation. We were during the E3 Critics Week. I'm kind of waiting for. I mean, that would totally undermine people saying, "Okay, let's buy the new Xbox," but. I'm kind of waiting for Microsoft to say, you know what, you can play our stuff anywhere you want to.
One thing that's going to help Microsoft a lot, because we know Sony's not going to be there, but there's also the fact that Microsoft is going to tell everyone, you don't have to wait a year to buy the next Xbox.
Right.
The leaks have already come out saying they want everything for Xbox Scarlet, or whatever it'll actually be called. That's just the code name that's been around. They want everything for that at launch next year to be ready for Xbox One X, Xbox One S, Windows 10. They really want this whole Game Pass ecosystem of, hey, however you want to get our games and however you want to play them is going to work. That's Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer really resetting the clock a few years ago, and that's really going to come to fruition. So this doesn't have to be a lame duck year for Microsoft, and that's great news for them.
And it's a software one for them as well, which is really exciting, because it's been all about the hardware and all about the Kinect and all the stuff that they were trying to do. This time they've spent their money on all these teams. We get to see some stuff. VR Grid says, I predict that Crimson Skies is going to be at every E3. And I probably have been doing that since the original game came out. I got a question from Nintendo Boy 17, which I think is a terrific one based on a mighty big absence, although we saw Death Stranding, I think, take a little bit of the wind out of the sails of E3. But Nintendo Boy says, do you think it's do you have concerns about E3 as an event now that Sony has dropped out?
I was just going to say, the reason I think that this is going to be the most interesting E3 yet is because everybody is clamoring right now to take up that space in the vacuum. Now, as an attendee, if you're one of the people who pays to go to E3, number one, you're an idiot. But number two, you used to rely on Sony's booth because they had so many third-party developers with kiosks and games you could play with short lines. So that is toast. But I do think there are a couple of publishers that are poised to make some impact. One of them, I can't say at all because I think that would give away something from Judges Week that totally surprised me. And I bet you know what I'm hinting at. But number two is I think Square Enix absolutely has the chance. They have their own press conference in the Sony slot. Right. They have a huge slate of Eastern and Western games. Final Fantasy VII, what are we going to see? Don't know. Collection of Mana, that just got trademarked today in the EU. And so that could be a thing on the other end of the JRPG spectrum. Whatever they have in terms of the Avengers game as a service / multiplayer thing.
I'm so freaking psyched for that, man. I love Crystal Dynamics. I hope they just kill it with this game.
And, maybe there's something Deus Ex here for the end of this generation of consoles. There's just a lot that Square Enix has its fingers in, and I think they're poised. Maybe it won't be great, but I think they're going to make that big splash and try and fill in that floor space, get the photo ops, and be there and be like, we're doing this while E3 still exists.
Yeah. Sam, what are you most excited about for this year's E3? What can't you wait for?
Victor, seeing you. That's
no.
I'm really interested in surprises. I want to see what Sony trots out in the days leading up. Because they definitely don't want to be forgotten.
Do you think Sony's going to do that? They're going to drop some more big hints before E3? That's such 100%. A pissy thing to do.
Yeah, why not? Everybody's doing it.
I guess so.
It's like the war of videos now. Devolver's going to do a stupid YouTube-only conference, and we're not going to be mad at them for doing it. So I do think that they have an opportunity, while all eyes are on Western gaming news, to get in there, butt in with a headline, and make sure that they are not lost, because they're the leading console platform. Gamers are going to expect some information. Death Stranding, that was a great news drop, perfectly timed. I imagine The Last of Us Part 2 is going to get another one. And that we as press won't have to stand in a weird converted church to see it this year. But it really is about, I really do want Microsoft, with all of these acquisitions, with a really quiet E3. I mean, Crackdown 3 was a big focus for them last year at E3.
I know.
Which kind of says how, and that was so crappy for them. And this year, the whole slate's been cleared, and they can bust out surprises. So I think that's high on my surprise list. And then
that's all I want too, Sam. I want to be surprised. Like, we've just listed off 1 million games here. A lot of them are going to be awesome. We know that. We can predict that, and I think accurately predict that, but I want to be shocked. I want to be surprised. The game that I keep thinking about is Splatoon. When Nintendo dropped that, I called it wrong. I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, it's a kid's shooter. I'm never going to like this thing. And then it became an obsession. It just became so much fun, and I love that out of nowhere Nintendo had created a whole new industry for themselves with this franchise,
And let's not forget, there's 2 other players this year who I believe are going to do their best to make headlines. Apple and Google. Right. They each now have stakes. Apple's got its subscription gaming service for iOS and tvOS, but we don't know much, and I don't see them being
Apple
shy.
Arcade.
Because they need to be at E3 and get publishers interested and get developers interested. And then Stadia really wants to get in there and make a splash, and they have allied with Ubisoft. So maybe we'll see Ubisoft and Google come out and swinging with like, hey, guess what? We have a single-player giant adventure. It's going to be on Stadia. It's going to look best on Stadia. And it's single-player subscription, which means it can't be pirated, and we as publishers love that. You can't buy and sell it. You have to get that could be quite a thing with Google allying with somebody, with Google saying, hey, we just spent all of our money on this giant surprise.
It's a lot of choice, right? And then there's Intellivision with the Amico. There's going to be a little bit of murmurs about that, all that stuff as well. I'm curious to see what that's all about this year.
What, hasn't Tommy opened up his trench coat to you and shown you all that stuff yet?
I've seen prototype stuff, but I haven't seen any of the software. I haven't seen any of the games.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Ubisoft here for a second, because it does sound like we're going to have not only the Xbox Pass and now EA. You can get the EA. Game Pass, I forget what it's called, but the EA Play or something like that. On
EA
every
Access,
machine.
I think.
EA Access, and it sounds like Ubisoft's going to have one of their own subscription things. So,
and boy, wouldn't it be nice if that tucked in perfectly with Stadia? Wouldn't it be great if you were paying for the Ubisoft Pass and boom, it's working in your web browser? That's possible, man.
Yeah, for sure. Psyched about the rumors of a Watch Dogs set in London?
I'd like to see Watch Dogs be good, because I think, well, here's the thing. It's been fine, but I've been kind of beaten down by the Ubisoft open world paradigm. I think Jim Sterling has this incredible breakdown of Ubisoft's open world repetition, and I liked that Odyssey blew that up a bit. And I hope that Ubisoft has given other studios the room to wiggle around and do something really that feels different, that feels distinct, that's like, yeah, I really do want to give very valuable hours of my life to a giant game.
Yeah,
because
well,
it's got to feel different.
It could be the rule of threes, right? If this is the third Watch Dogs, it could be the one, right? It could be the one that kind of pivots and turns it into something incredible. If it is set in London, the CCTV capital of the world, it just makes sense, you know? Hopefully that's cool.
And the Brexit possibilities. I mean, come on.
So much fun with that, yes. And then this roller derby game, which sounds insane, but sounds like something Ubisoft would concoct, and it sounds like Rayman might be a character in something like this. Well, I want to play this game.
I mean, there's that, and there's Wild, which has been teased forever. There's Beyond Good and Evil 2. We don't know what's to come of that. I'm interested in the roller derby game because I'm a child of the 80s. I remember when they tried to make that a thing on television.
Yeah.
I don't know which studio is involved, but I do know Ubisoft loves that Technicolor 80s look. And what if they gave the Just Dance team the ability to make a gamer game and said, here, take your things that are really fun, that are those Just Dance games are beautiful, and the UI on those is a trip. Even if they're like not my bag, I would love to see that team just let loose on some crazy esports friendly, streaming friendly rollerblade party.
And there's such a big part of E3. When you say Just Dance team, I'm actually thinking of the dancers that are on stage for the whole E3 making a game. That was the first thing that went in my mind, is like all the dancers working together to make
Give them the Unreal Engine 4 license and a computer lab, man. I bet they'd rock it. I'm into that.
That's awesome, brother. All right, my friend. We're going to call it there, although we could easily keep talking for many, many more hours. Let's catch up at E3, and let's see how many of our predictions and how many of our surprises actually come true, okay?
Victor, it's always a pleasure to come on. Y'all have a lovely rest of the show.